My girlfriend, Lena, and I moved into apartment 4B last October, thinking we'd scored the perfect downtown spot, cheap rent, exposed brick, one of those old-school intercoms by the door. The building had that creaky, vintage charm, but we didn't care. We were too busy unpacking and joking about the weird buzz the intercom made when we tested it. Probably just needs cleaning, I said. The first few nights were normal, just the usual city sounds, sirens, drunk laughter, the occasional car alarm. Then, around 2 a.m. on our third week, the intercom crackled to life. Not the buzzer, just the speaker, like someone had keyed the mic. At first, it was just static. Then, clear as day, a child's giggle. Not cute. Wrong. Like a recording played backward underwater. Lena froze mid-sentence. "You heard that, right?" she whispered. I nodded, my stomach dropping. The intercom wasn't even plugged in. We called a technician the next morning, some guy named Marty with a toolbox and a skeptical frown. He tore the intercom apart, checked the wiring, even climbed into the building's dusty utility closet. "Nothing's hooked up," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "This thing's deader than my ex's sense of humor." He left, and we tried to laugh it off, but that night, it happened again. This time, voices, murmurs layered over each other, like a crowded room just out of reach. Then, clear as a knife through fog, Lena. "Daniel." In a rasp that didn't sound human. We bolted upright in bed. The intercom's plastic face was cold when I touched it. No power, no logic, just our names, whispered by something that shouldn't have known them. By the fourth night, we were sleeping with the lights on. The voices had escalated to full sentences, none of them made sense. One phrase kept repeating, "The walls are thin here." It sounded like an old woman, her voice frayed at the edges, like a record left in the sun too long. Lena started researching the building's history, while I taped over the intercom's speaker grill with duct tape, my hands shaking so badly I messed up twice. That's when we noticed the smell, burned sugar, and something metallic, creeping in under the door. No source, no explanation. Just this thick, cloying stench that made our eyes water. We called the super, a tired-looking guy named Ruiz, who shrugged and said, "Old pipes, maybe." But his face went pale when I mentioned the intercom. Ruiz avoided eye contact when he told us about apartment 4C. "Sealed off 3 months back," he muttered, scuffing his boot on our threshold. "Electrical fire. Elderly lady and her granddaughter didn't make it." Lena's grip on my arm tightened. The granddaughter had been 6 years old. I thought of the giggles, the way the voices sometimes overlapped, a child's and an old woman's, tangled together. That night, we shoved a dresser in front of the intercom and slept in the living room. At 3:17 a.m., I checked the clock. The intercom buzzer screamed like a fire alarm. No power, no wires, just that ear-splitting drone, and underneath it, a wet, choking whisper, "Let me in." Not angry, desperate, like whatever was on the other side was starving. We called the police the next morning, not because we thought they'd help, but because we needed someone to confirm we weren't losing our minds. The officer who showed up, a bored-looking guy with a coffee stain on his shirt, barely glanced at the intercom. "Probably a prank," he said, tapping the unplugged wires like that explained anything. When Lena mentioned the fire in 4C, he stiffened and cut her off. "That's a closed case. No report, no follow-up. Just a warning not to waste resources unless we had real evidence." After he left, we sat in silence, staring at the intercom. The tape we'd put over it was peeling at the corners, as if something had been picking at it from the other side. That night, we tried to outsmart it. I rigged my phone to record the intercom while we stayed at a hotel, praying we'd catch proof of a break-in or wiring fault. The room was cheap, the kind with stained carpets and a flickering neon sign outside, but at least it was silent. Until 3 a.m. My phone buzzed with a notification. The motion detector we'd left facing the intercom had been triggered. The video showed nothing at first, just our dark apartment. Then, a sound like nails dragging over metal. The intercom's speaker grill bulged, plastic creaking, as if something was pressing against it from inside the wall. The audio cut out after that. No voices. Just a single, shuddering breath right before the video ended. We moved back in the next day because we couldn't afford to keep paying for the hotel. The apartment smelled worse now, like wet ash and something spoiled. The intercom looked normal, except for the duct tape hanging loose in strips. I pressed my ear against it and immediately jerked back. A faint scratching came from inside, slow and deliberate, like something tracing the shape of the speaker from the other side. Lena suggested calling a priest, but neither of us was religious. Instead, We did the only thing that made sense at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. We got drunk. Cheap whiskey burned my throat as we laughed too loud, trying to drown out the dread. It almost worked. Until the intercom buzzed again, right in front of us, and a child's voice whispered, "You're home." After that, we stopped pretending it was a malfunction. The building manager refused to answer our calls, and the neighbors either hadn't heard anything or lied about it. We tried everything: salt lines, sage, even a Bluetooth speaker blasting white noise at the intercom all night. Nothing worked. The voices got clearer. The old woman would ramble about the cold and the dark, while the girl just giggled and hummed nursery rhymes. One night, I caught Lena standing inches from the intercom, her breath fogging the plastic as she whispered, "What do you want?" The response was instant: "To show you." That's when we noticed the temperature drop. Our breath hung in the air despite the broken radiator hissing in the corner. The walls breathed, I swear it, expanding and contracting like a living thing. The final straw came on a Thursday. I woke up to Lena screaming. She was clawing at her arm, where 3 perfect, red scratches ran from wrist to elbow. "Something grabbed me," she sobbed. The sheets were icy, soaked with a smell like burnt hair. That's when we saw it. The intercom's plastic cover had cracked overnight, a jagged line splitting it down the middle. Through the gap, something glistened. Not wires, not dust. It looked like wet skin. I grabbed a flashlight and nearly vomited when the beam revealed a single, clouded eye pressed against the opening, its pupil dilating in the light. The voice that came through wasn't electronic anymore. It was raw, throaty, drowning in saliva. She didn't mean to burn us. Then the eye blinked out. We fled to a 24-hour diner and called Ruiz at dawn, demanding the truth. He showed up reeking of vodka, eyes bloodshot. "Fine," he slurred. "That old lady in 4C? She wasn't just some sweet grandma. They found her clutching the kid, both of them black as charcoal. Fire marshal said the girl's hands were burned worse, like she'd been trying to claw her way out." He dropped his keys twice before adding, "The intercom's here? They share a wall conduit with 4C. We sealed their unit, but maybe not enough." Lena's coffee cup shattered on the floor. That's when we realized the voices weren't trying to scare us. They were trapped. And now that we'd heard them, they'd latched onto us like a lifeline. We broke our lease that same day, leaving behind furniture, clothes, everything. The super just shrugged and kept our deposit. As we carried the last box to the car, the intercom buzzed one final time, a long, distorted wail that rattled the windows. I'll never forget what happened next. The crack in the plastic split wider, and a tiny, blackened hand wriggled out, fingers curling like a spider's legs. It wasn't solid, more like smoke given shape, but I could smell it, crisped flesh and melted rubber. Lena vomited on the sidewalk while I slammed the door so hard the frame splintered. From inside, the old woman's voice screeched, "You should have let USI in," followed by a child's broken sobs. We peeled out of the parking lot so fast the tires left marks. We moved 3 states away and still sleep with the lights on. The new apartment has no intercom, just a peephole I check 5 times before opening the door. Sometimes, though, when the radiator kicks on, I catch a whiff of burnt sugar, or I'll wake up to 4 faint dents in the mattress like a small child knelt beside me, watching. Lena won't talk about it anymore, but last week, I found her staring at our baby monitor, the volume cranked to max just in case, she whispered. The worst part? I know it's not over. Because apartments aren't the only things with thin walls. Dreams are thin too. And last night, in mine, the intercom buzzed. My buddy Jake and I rented the old 2-story house on Oakwood Drive because it was cheap and, honestly, kinda charming in a "this place has seen some history" way. The walls creaked, the floors groaned, and the guest room closet door never quite stayed shut. But we joked about it being haunted, like you do. Jake was a freelance photographer, always traveling for gigs, so when he left for a 2-week job in Colorado, I figured I'd just binge video games and enjoy the silence. The first night alone, though, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps downstairs. I froze. Jake's back early? But no, his flight wasn't till next week. I grabbed my baseball bat and checked every room. Nothing. Just an empty coffee cup on the counter and the guest room closet door wide open. I swore I'd shut it. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd left the cup there and imagined the footsteps. But then I noticed my keys weren't where I'd dropped them. My laptop charger was unplugged and coiled too neatly. And every damn morning, that closet door was cracked open, just an inch, like someone had peeked out and forgotten to close it all the way. By day 4, I was sweating bullets. I bought a cheap security cam and aimed it at the hallway, right at the closet. That night, I stayed up till 2 a.m., staring at the live feed on my phone. Nothing. I dozed off and woke up to a notification. Motion detected, 3:17 a.m. My stomach dropped. The footage showed a tall figure, too thin, limbs just slightly too long, sliding out of the closet. It moved like it knew the house, like it lived there. I replayed the footage a dozen times, zooming in until the pixels blurred. The figure never turned toward the camera, but I could see its hands, too many fingers, knuckles bulging like knots in rope. My first thought was to call Jake, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Weird. He always answered, even on assignments. I tried the police next, but the officer just squinted at my phone screen and said, "You kids and your deepfake apps." No forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing. That night, I jammed a chair under the closet doorknob and slept with the bat in my grip. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to a scratching sound, not at the door, but inside the walls. Like something was crawling through them. By morning, the chair was shoved aside, the closet door ajar again. I bolted it shut with a padlock from the garage. Problem solved, I thought. But that night, the camera caught the figure emerging through the locked door, its body sliding out like smoke. I screamed at the screen, "What the hell are you?" as it paused mid-step, like it heard me, then vanished into Jake's room. I sprinted upstairs, bat raised, but the room was empty. Just his unmade bed and his camera bag, zipped shut. My hands shook as I unzipped it. Inside was his passport, his wallet, a plane ticket to Colorado, and used. The date stamped was the day he'd supposedly left. My blood went cold. Had he ever really left the house at all? I tore through Jake's room, looking for anything that made sense. His suitcase was still tucked under the bed, dust on the handle. His favorite hoodie hung on the chair, smelling like his cheap cologne. But his phone, the one he'd texted me from Colorado, wasn't there. Just a charger, plugged in like he'd never left. My hands were sweating so bad I dropped my own phone, and when I picked it up, the camera app was still open. The live feed showed the hallway empty. Then, 3:17 a.m. flashed on the screen, but it was 9:23 in the morning. The timestamp glitched again, and for half a second, I saw Jake's face in the closet doorway, his mouth stretched too wide, eyes black as the inside of a coffin. Then the feed cut to static. I ran to the closet, padlock still in place, and pressed my ear against the door. Silence. Then a breath. Not mine. Something inside exhaled, slow and wet, like lungs full of syrup. I stumbled back, tripping over Jake's camera bag. That's when I saw the photos spilled across the floor. Dozens of them, all taken in our house. Same angles, same rooms, but in every shot, I was asleep. On the couch, in my bed, even one where I was passed out at the kitchen table. A shadow crouched beside me, its fingers curled around my wrist. The dates on the photos? All from before Jake's trip. My stomach lurched. How long had this thing been watching me? I couldn't stay in that house another night. I grabbed my car keys, ready to drive to a motel. Anywhere but here, when I heard the closet door creak open behind me. The padlock hit the floor with a metallic clink, though I hadn't touched it. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell like wet earth and something sweetly rotten. My legs wouldn't move. In the hallway mirror, I saw the reflection of the closet door swinging wide, but when I turned, it was still shut. That's when the whispering started, not from the closet, but from Jake's room. His voice, but wrong, like it was being dragged through gravel. "You should have left when you had the chance." The doorknob began to turn slowly, and I finally found my legs. I ran. I made it to my car, but the engine wouldn't start. The radio blasted static, then a voice, my own, reciting the exact words I'd said to Jake the night before he left. "Dude, this place is giving me the creeps. What if we break the lease?" Outside, the streetlights flickered. That's when I saw him. Jake, or something wearing his face, standing in the upstairs window. His smile split his cheeks too wide, his teeth gleaming like polished bone. He lifted a hand and waved, fingers bending in too many joints. The front door of the house swung open, inviting. The whispers grew louder, now coming from the back seat of my car. "You live here now." I smashed the window with my elbow and ran on foot. Not looking back. I crashed at a 24-hour diner, chugging coffee like it could burn the fear out of me. The waitress kept glancing at my shaking hands. "Rough night?" she asked. I almost laughed. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake's number. A photo of me sitting in the diner booth, taken from outside the window. The timestamp, 3:17 a.m. The next text read, "Come home. I miss you." I threw cash on the table and bolted to the bathroom, locking myself in. The mirror fogged up, though the room was cold. Words appeared in the condensation, like a finger had traced them. The closet isn't empty anymore. Behind me, the bathroom stall door slowly swung open. Something dripped from the ceiling, thick and dark, landing on my shoulder. I didn't look up that I called the only person I could think of, Jake's ex, Lydia. She picked up on the first ring. "Thank God you called," she said. "Jake's been texting me weird shit for days." My blood froze. "What kind of weird?" She hesitated. "Photos of you sleeping, and other things. He said you both made a new friend." A crash came from the diner's kitchen. The lights flickered. Lydia's voice dropped to a whisper. "Where are you right now? Tell me you're not at the house." The bathroom door handle jiggled. Something scratched at the wood, slow and deliberate. "I'm not," I lied. The scratching stopped. Then, from right outside the door, Jake's voice. "Liar." The line went dead that I burst out of the bathroom and into the diner's kitchen, startling the cook. "Back door. Now," I demanded. He took one look at my face and pointed. I ran into the alley just as the diner's power cut out. The street was dead silent. No cars, no people. Just the distant hum of the house's porch light, glowing like a beacon 2 blocks away. My feet moved on their own, carrying me back. The front door stood open. Inside, every light was on. The closet door gaped wide, darkness pooling out. Jake stood in the hallway, his head tilted at an impossible angle. "You were right," he said, voice bubbling like something was stuck in his throat. "The house is haunted." Behind him, the thing from the closet stepped forward, tall, too thin, its face a shifting blur of every person who'd ever lived here. That I woke up in the guest bed, sunlight streaming through the curtains. The house was silent. No whispers, no footsteps. Jake's room was empty, his belongings gone, like he'd never existed. The closet door was sealed shut, fresh drywall covering it completely. When I checked my phone, there were no missed calls, no texts. Just one new voicemail, timestamp 3:17 a.m. Static, then Jake's voice, calm and clear. "It's your turn to watch the closet now." I threw the phone across the room. That was a month ago. The drywall started cracking. Last night, I heard scratching. And this morning, a single coffee cup sat on the counter, steam still rising. I don't drink coffee. The closet door is warm to the touch. I think it's almost time. I've been an internet technician for 6 years, and I've crawled through every kind of nasty attic and moldy basement you can imagine. But nothing prepared me for that godforsaken building on Elmhurst Street. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my boss sent me out to check a service failure in some old residential high-rise slated for demolition. The place was a relic, cracked concrete, boarded up windows, and a lobby that smelled like wet newspaper and something sharper, like burnt copper. My work order said the whole block was offline, but when I got there, the silence felt off. Not just empty, hollow, like the building was holding its breath. I remember laughing when my phone buzzed in my pocket. No signal flashed on the screen, but it was ringing anyway. The call Idaho just said unknown. I swiped answer, half expecting some robocall, but what came through was wrong. A metallic screech, like feedback from a broken radio, and underneath it, this whisper. Not quite a voice, more like something trying to be one. It gargled my name, Mike. "Mickey," stretching the syllables like taffy. I hung up fast, blaming it on bad reception. Then I noticed the junction box. Its cables had been ripped out, the ends frayed and rusted. The work order was dated that morning, but those wires had been dead for months. That I told myself it was just some glitch, maybe interference from the demolition prep, but my hands were shaking as I packed up my tools. That's when I heard it, a click from the hallway behind me, like a door unlatched. The building was supposed to be empty, but suddenly I wasn't so sure. I turned slowly, my flashlight cutting through the dust. Nothing there, just shadows pooling at the end of the corridor, thick enough to feel deliberate. Then my phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time, the static was worse, like nails dragged over a chalkboard, and the whisper was clearer. "You didn't check upstairs." I nearly dropped the damn thing. My company's protocol says never to work alone in unsecured areas, but curiosity, or maybe dread, pulled me toward the stairwell. The steps groaned under my boots, each creak sounding like a warning. The higher I climbed, the colder it got. By the fourth floor, I could see my breath. That's when I noticed the cables, or rather, where they should have been. The walls were gutted, conduit pipes yanked open like something had burst out of them. But here's what fucked me up. In one of the apartments, a phone was ringing. Not mine, a landline, shrill and insistent, from behind a door with fresh scratches around the knob. I pushed it open, stupid, I know, and the room was ice. No furniture, no phone, just a pile of twisted wires in the center of the floor, coiled like a nest. My own phone buzzed. You're close. I bolted. Didn't stop running until I was back in my truck, sweating despite the cold that I reported the whole thing to my boss. But he just shrugged and said, "Old buildings make weird noises. Probably squatters messing with the lines." The police? Even worse. No occupants, no crime. The dispatcher droned, like I'd called about a stray cat. I tried to believe them. Wanted to, until that night. I was in bed, half asleep, when my phone lit up the room. Unknown. The screen pulsed like a heartbeat. I answered, bracing for static, but this time, silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. "You left us alone." The voice was different. Not one person, but many, layered over each other, whispering in unison. I yanked the battery out. Thank God my old phone let you do that, and threw it across the room. But at 3:17 a.m., my landline rang. Same distorted chorus. Finished the job. After that, I slept with the lights on. The calls came every night, always between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., always from a different number. Sometimes it was the metallic screeching. Other times, it was just breathing, wet and ragged, like someone was holding the receiver too close to their mouth. I changed my number. Bought a new phone. Didn't matter. Whatever was in that building had my name now. One night, I finally snapped and screamed into the phone. "What do you want?" The static cut out instantly. Then, clear as day, a child's voice giggled and said, "Turn around." I spun so fast I knocked over my lamp. The corner of my bedroom, the one still shadowed, felt denser somehow. Like something was standing there, grinning in the dark. By the seventh night, I was a walking corpse, dark circles under my eyes, jumping at every creak in my apartment. That's when the calls changed again. No more static, no whispers, just dial tone, but not the normal kind. This one pulsed, slow and uneven, like a dying heartbeat. And if I listened too long, I'd start hearing things underneath it. Muffled sobs, a woman humming off-key, the sound of something heavy being dragged across concrete. The worst part? My phone would get hot, burning my palm until I dropped it. I checked the logs afterward. Nothing. No record of any call. But my skin would stay red for hours, like I'd been branded. I knew then, whatever was in that building wasn't just trying to scare me. It was marking me. I caved and went back to Elmhurst Street at dawn, armed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, like that would help. The building looked worse in daylight. Windows like dead eyes, the front door swaying on broken hinges. Inside, the air was thick, like walking through soup. I forced myself up to the fourth floor, where I'd heard that phantom landline. The door with the scratches was open now, and the nest of wires? It had grown, spilling into the hallway in perfect, deliberate spirals. That's when I saw the first handprint, blackened, as if burned into the wall. Then another, and another, leading to a closet at the end of the hall. The knob was ice cold. I opened it. Inside, a single rotary phone sat on the floor, receiver off the hook, and the second I saw it, my phone rang. Same child's voice. "You came back." The rotary phone's cord was severed, the end chewed through like something had gnawed on it. But when I picked up the receiver, I heard my own voice from last week, yelling, "What do you want?" Exactly like I had in my apartment. The call was echoing backward through time. I dropped it like a live wire, but the closet door slammed shut behind me, trapping me in darkness. The child's voice giggled again, this time from inside the walls, whispering, "They're almost here." Then banging, not from the hallway, but from the phone itself, like someone was pounding on the other side of the receiver. I smashed the damn thing with my boot, and for 1 second, there was silence. Then every light bulb in the hallway exploded, plunging me into blackness. That's when the dragging sound started again, Closer now. I booked it down the stairs, but the building had changed. Doors I'd passed earlier were now sealed shut with thick, black wires, pulsing like veins. My flashlight died, so I felt my way along the wall, until my hand brushed something wet and warm. A breath hit my ear. "You should have finished the job." I swung blindly, hitting nothing, but the voice kept laughing, bouncing off the walls in all directions. When I finally reached the lobby, the exit was gone. Just a solid concrete wall where the door had been. My phone buzzed, a text this time, from my own number. "Look up." The ceiling was covered in them. Dozens of blackened handprints, crawling toward me like invisible spiders. The last thing I heard before passing out was the rotary phone ringing. Now from inside my skull that I woke up outside on the sidewalk, my clothes soaked in sweat. The building loomed over me, its windows dark again. My phone showed 37 missed calls, all from unknown, all in the 17 minutes I'd been unconscious. But the worst part? My toolbox was gone. Later, I'd find it on my doorstep, tools rusted over like they'd been buried for years, the word "finish" scratched into the metal. I never went back. Not when the calls kept coming. Not when my TV started flickering to static at 3:17 a.m., showing grainy footage of that damn closet. I moved cities, changed my name. But last week, I got a voicemail. Just the sound of a rotary phone dialing and a new whisper. "We found your replacement." Sometimes I still hear them. The voices, the static, the giggling. I know they're not in my head, because my new landlord called yesterday, confused. "Your work order says you're an internet technician, right?" he asked. "There's an old building on Elmhurst that needs service." The line crackled. In the background, I could have sworn I heard a rotary phone ring. I hung up, changed my number again. But deep down, I know the truth. The job's never really finished. They'll keep calling. And one day, I'll be the voice on the other end of the line, begging someone else to come back.